continue. Sorry.
Okay. So that was an overview on HVB, HVS Plus, and HVM Plus, and with just a mention that HVB, as we saw, has 15 years of warranty, while HVS Plus, HVM Plus carry on with the standard industry de facto standard 10 years of warranty. Now, moving on to the Power-Box and HVE, which is the main focus of today's presentation, well, this is a milestone, if I can say that, because BYD, been known since forever from making LFP cells and batteries, has stepped into the inverter market, introducing the Power-Box, which is coming with both a single-phase and three-phase versions. Right now, availability for the single phase, and then later in the near to medium term, there will be also availability of the three-phase inverter. As it can be expected, these inverters cover a wide range of applications, so we can go from 3 to 6 kilowatt for the single phase with the different in-between sizes, while on the other hand, from 5 to 15 kilowatt for the three-phase. Being a single-phase system and a three-phase system, we have a different compatibility set, which is ranging from a minimum configuration on the HVE up to a maximum configuration for the single-phase. The same applies for the three-phase. And possibility to have in parallel up to 3 towers, because we know that we have seen that BYD has always allowed up to 3 towers in parallel with the use of combiner box for the DC connection. Now, moving a little bit closer and a little bit more in depth into the system, we will start by the HVE, where we can already appreciate that nice silhouette looking from a side. First, the peculiarity of this new battery is that it comes with 2 different sizes. So we have 2 modules, 4.2 kilowatt hours and 6.4 kilowatt hours, which can be combined. And this is already a difference, which is giving a distinction of feature, compared to not only HVS and HVM, but also HVB, HVS Plus, HVM Plus. What is the advantage? The advantage is to be able to almost tailor-make a tower, tailor-made actually, depending on the need of the customer. Because we can, combining these 2 capacities, we can have roughly 2 kilowatt hours steps between different configurations, so we can actually give the customer what he really exactly needs. And we can also, we will see later on, we can also start from a lower capacity for X number of reasons and then expand it later on. Because one of the advantages, let's not forget, is that BYD does not put any limitation into the expansion of an existing system. It does not have any impact on the warranty conditions. As we said before, as we've seen before, the HVE warranty is standard 15 years, but actually we have seen that BYD has a super long LFP experience. So the life design of the HVE, as well as also the HVB, but can be extended also to HVS Plus, HVM Plus, is not the nominal warranty, because the system is not expected to stop to work the day after the end of the warranty. In fact, the LFP cells have, among various features, a very long design of life. Passive cooling, as with all of the other batteries we have seen so far, IP65 protection, which has been stepped up from IP55 in the HVS, HVM, and an extended range of operating temperature, because we have seen a -20 plus 50 for the HVB, -10 plus 50 for the HVS, HVM, also their sisters of the first generation, but we have -20 plus 55 for the HVE. we have seen it before, the silhouette of the HVE. We have 140 millimeters of depth, which is even less than our smartphones. So it opens up the possibility for installations in places where it was not possible before. For reference, we have 298 millimeters in the HVS and HVM. So this is less than half. Again, continuing the advantages of the HVE, we have not only a lowering in the depth, but also a lower weight. For comparison, on the left-hand side, you can see the maximum configuration, the highest expansion of an HVM, which is roughly 22 kilowatt hours, weighing about 300 kilograms. On the HVE, we have 5% more capacity, 23.5, and roughly 70 kilograms less. This can be translated into the opportunity of also wall mounting an HVE. Obviously, consideration to be done on the type of wall, because then it could be required to have the chemical fissures, for example. But the system being so narrow and being so compact can also be mounted on the wall. Mounting on the wall, which is allowed with an optional kit, which is composed of this cover ceiling, actually hiding 3 huge and sturdy wall brackets. We will see better in a detailed slide later on. Again, we mentioned it before, so we have the possibility to expand also an HVE as the other products from the first generation at any given SoC. So this feature is common to all of the products. And here we can see a slide from the datasheet where we can see all of the possible combinations. And this is what I was referring when I said 2 kilowatt hours steps. Starting from the minimum configuration of 6.4 kilowatt hours, supported by the single phase up to 23.5 feature and combination supported by the 3-phase inverter. It is actually not a mistyping here, for example. You can see that some combinations are duplicated, that because it depends on how they are obtained, from 2 6.4 modules rather than from 3 4.2 modules. So to sum it up, we have LFP technology, where BYD has been pioneering since 2002. Latest standards, because we also have pressure valves built into the modules, not because there was any safety concern, because it was mentioned 1,500,000 battery box systems installed in the last 10 years, 0 accident, 0 security concerns. And the previous gen didn't have this type of valve. But the latest security standards also require it. And so BYD has upgraded the system, also including this valve. And we have seen the ingress protection, the 15 years of warranty, and the platform BYD Energy as a heart of the system, which is also giving us the hook to talk about the inverter, because HVE, let's not forget, is designed to be compatible with the Power-Box, and the Power-Box is designed and is supporting the HVE only. So Power-Box, single phase, 3-phase, these are the key points in common between both of them. They have been gathered together. So it is a new gen inverter. So we are expecting a high DC current wherever it is, be it from the PV, be it from the battery. We are expecting an extended DC range. Later on, we will see also a few numbers. And possibly the ability to connect in parallel more than one inverter. So this feature, I believe I mentioned it before, is planned to be released about in Q1 2026. So it will be implemented into the firmware. Not only that, modern inverter, blackouts can happen. Different manufacturers have different systems in order to have a backup configuration. With the Power-Box, it is on board on the inverter. The functionality is called the EPS output. So there's a separate AC output on the inverter, and it is providing full backup because the backup is of the nominal power of the inverter. Internally, there are near instantaneous contactors, so they, at the blink of an eye, they open and close. So translating it, if we have a lightning bulb, it will be always on, to make it short. And then high peak output current power, actually. That means that not only we can have the nominal power from the EPS port, but we can also extend it for a short period. And later on, we will see it. 15 years of warranty on the HVE is great, but also the inverter has some benefit when the inverter is connected to the HVE. In fact, 5 years is a nominal warranty on the inverter. However, when the inverter is connected to a compatible battery, formerly HVE, and connected to the monitoring system, then it automatically benefits from 5 years of additional warranty. No need to do any registration, no need to do anything except for the commissioning of the system. And everything is done automatically. Easy installation, everything is included. Inverter, we need a meter. We mentioned the communication stick. Everything is in the scope of delivery of the inverter. We don't need to buy any separate product or code or run into the risk of finding a meter out of stock. Again, as we said, BYD Energy, new common platform. So we have a platform where we can interact remotely. We can do firmware upgrade and also monitoring, if required, check also error messages and then do proper troubleshooting. Yeah, we have seen the sizes before. So what we would expect from a residential, but also small CNI, small, not professional, small, how can I say, industrial installation is here. And I would like to have your focus on this line on the right-hand side, because traditionally, as we said, BYD has been producing batteries, and there was no restriction on the usage of the batteries, be it in on-grid application, off-grid application, backup situation. The battery is there to do whatever the inverter wants to do. However, here we are talking also about inverter, and BYD is not restricting the usage scenario of the inverter itself, allowing also an off-grid situation without any warranty limitation. And this is also a nice characteristic which is distinguished and setting apart the Power-Box. Again, overview from the bottom side of the single phase. Obviously, everything which has to be there is that. Of course, a switch, the two strings inputs, battery connections, USB port, grid AC, EPS AC. But we can also appreciate a generous aluminum sink, heat sink, which is actually giving us also, how can I say, it is also giving us the idea and the build quality on this inverter, because we don't have a super tiny inverter where the heat is building up quickly. In fact, this inverter is passively cooled, and we are happy to have a nice contact area to exchange the heat. The same applies for the three-phase, and more or less the same communication ports. However, just to catch your attention on these two maybe it is not the most technical word in English, definition in English, but these two rubbers which are hiding two ports, and later on we will talk about this again. Externally, the inverter comes with three LEDs which can give us a feedback on the status of the inverter. For example, on grid, off grid, doing checks, rather than communication established to the BMS and to the meter, or a faulty error state which has to be checked and diagnosed. Now, to put the specs into perspective and to have a quick overview between the single phase and the three phase, here you can see this chart, which is giving us at a glance the possibility to see the data. Starting by the PV oversizing, because we know that oversizing the PV can be useful, is useful. So we can have from 200% up to 150%, depending on the specific size and power of the single phase. On the other hand, we have the three phase, which can be oversized 150% flat across all of the line. Two MPPTs inputs, each one with one string connected across all the line. However, here we start to get a little bit of differences in the 12 and 15 kilowatt, as it was introduced before when I talked about those two rubbers on the bottom. Those actually were covering the third string input, which is basically a parallel connection of the strings directly at the MPPT1 on the 12 and 15 kilowatt inverter. Again, we have a modern inverter. We are expecting a high amperage on the photovoltaic, so we have 16 amperes on the single phase and 24 on the three phase, with 32 on the 12 and 15 kilowatt inverter. The same can be said on the battery side, charge and discharge, and later on we will see a nice chart. Again, extended DC voltage, and what was mentioned in those bullets before. So not only we have the nominal output power from the EPS port, but we also have the possibility to draw up to 200% for a period shorter than 10 seconds on the single phase, and up to 150% for a period shorter than 60 seconds on the three phase. And then obviously IP65 and IP66, depending on single phase and three phase. So that was to give some numbers. Practically, when we have a single phase inverter, thanks to the extended and the low DC voltage, we can have just the 6.4 kilowatt hour module, which is actually combining voltage and amperage, which is giving us 4 kilowatt in charge and discharge. This little thing, which is weighing about 70 kilograms. So this module can also be hung on the wall with a wall mounting kit, which we said before. Yes, I mentioned that the solidity, the thickness of the wall has to be checked. However, when we're talking about a 6.4 kilowatt hours battery, which is weighing about 70 kilograms, it can be usually found, a way can be usually found to put it on the wall. Now, matching the 35 amp from the HVE with the 35 amp from the single phase, we obtain this chart, which is telling us that, as we have seen, 6.4 is already saturating the capacity, the power of the 3 and 3.7 kilowatt inverter, and stopping that at 4 kilowatt. If we consider a roughly 10 kilowatt hours, which is a capacity which can be usually installed in a residential context, then we actually exceed the output of the single phase 6 kilowatt inverter. Because doing the calculation, a 10 0.7 kilowatt hours can provide 6.7 kilowatt of power. So we have, or even some room to exceed, the 6 kilowatt